Trump since
please.
Since
No.
Joe was kind enough to bring it up. Hey, everybody, welcome to my monthly Patreon hangout. Right before I clicked start broadcast, one of my wonderful patrons here mentioned Donald Trump. So, how many of us...
to give him any more airtime than he already has? That's
Yeah, I know. It's...
Yeah. You know how hated Donald Trump is? I went to my mother's place the last weekend. I haven't been to her place in like 3 months, and they're hardcore Republican. First thing I say when I get there is, "So, what do you think about Trump?" And we just spent the next hour bashing Trump over and over.
Yeah.
And that is truly what brings Republicans and Democrats together.
Did the he wants to fuck his own daughter thing come up at all?
Oh my God.
It was mainly his insane policies, especially foreign policies.
You mean my favorite is when his insistence that not only is he going to build a fence along the entire border with Mexico, but Mexico is going to pay for it.
Yeah.
How are you going to get Mexico to pay for it? Trust me, I guarantee it. They're going to pay for it. Okay.
Yeah, it's not like we're
Here's what kills me. Why can't we supply Mexico with the incentives to improve their situation so that the whole immigration thing is a non-issue? I mean, hello? I mean, am I being completely unreasonable here?
Well, actually, we kind of did. I mean, there were a lot of industry that moved to Mexico post passing of NAFTA. However, unfortunately, what happened is that Mexican labor ended up becoming more expensive than Southeast Asian labor. So then there are plants that had picked up from the U.S. and moved to Mexico that then picked up and moved to the Far East because they found new people that they could exploit even better.
Oh, goody.
Also, I'm pretty sure that's a handout, and you know how they feel about handouts.
Yeah, right. You have to earn.
There's one other thing.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say it's just interesting that if you're giving something to someone who's poor, it's a handout. If you're giving something to someone who's already got a lot, it's an incentive.
Yeah, exactly. We should all strive
like
to earn
trickle-down
what
economics,
we have.
and who believes in that?
Right. We should all strive to earn what we have, like Donald Trump did.
He started with only a few $100 million, and look at him now.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was
made money the old-fashioned way. I inherited it.
Well, the thing is, I actually did the math. The money that he's made, based on the amount of money he started with, he's only about done equal to what the market would have done. If he just put the money in the market, he would have got about the same. So the idea that he's this fantastic businessman is complete horseshit. He basically he matched the market. I mean, anybody could do that, literally.
Yeah.
Didn't he bankrupt his company like 3 times?
5.
Yeah.
5? Oh, wow.
It's the old saying. I think I remember Ann Richards saying it, but I know it probably goes back further than that. He was born on third base and he thinks he hit a triple.
Yeah.
Yeah. At one point, somebody on the Diane Rehm show, I think it was this past Friday, made, as far as Trump is concerned, he knows how to do TV. And he does. That's unavoidable. The problem is, I don't think he's going to do well with confrontation, and I would kill to see somebody really genuinely go head-to-head with him. And as regards that, I mean, somebody proposed that, that's my grandkid. Hi, Jason. Anyhow, somebody proposed that Jon Stewart host one of the debates. I want to see him do a primary debate.
Yeah.
I want that. I want that a lot.
Well, I would pay good money to see that.
Yeah, they could put that on pay-per-view.
Yeah, I would pay good money to see that.
I would spend the money for pay-per-view on that one.
I would buy it, yeah.
Okay, so whatever happened with that the Sarah Palin interviewing Donald Trump thing? Did that really happen?
Yeah, it happened.
Was it hilarious?
I haven't seen it, but yeah.
I haven't seen it either. But see, the one thing is, a lot of people have been despairing, and I did for a little bit too. But then it really occurred to me that yes, he's got like 25% of the Republican primary voters, but first off, that's the primary voters, so it's not even the swath of the entire Republican Party. And then if you think about it, 75% of them don't want him. So so you're taking the Republicans.
But they can't coalesce around anybody else.
That's right.
Yeah, they have nobody.
That's right. So Republicans are 30%. The primary voters are a subset of that, usually about 60%, and then he's got 25% of the 60% of the 30%.
Yeah.
I feel like the only sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
I feel like the only presidential candidates who are in any way presentable so far would be Sanders and Clinton. I mean, besides them, it's just some guy or some woman talking just incoherently about useless bullshit, and then you see Clinton, even if for the wrong reasons, still taking issues, and you see Sanders being honest, but it's just them. It's just
Well, the least insane Republican is probably actually John Kasich, and which for that reason he has no chance in hell.
Yeah, well,
no, Kasich screwed himself.
Don't go there with John Kasich. I have to live with the son of a bitch, and he's about as pro-woman as a hole in the head.
Yeah,
he's,
that's true.
He's right up there trying to defund Planned Parenthood along with everybody else, and the disconnect. Well, that was interesting. The disconnect on Planned Parenthood to me is just scary. It's not
a
whole attitude there is so anti-woman.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not a disconnect. This is part of an organized campaign. They've been trying to do this for ages. This isn't that they don't know. They know. They're just bad. Simple as that.
They want their women barefoot and pregnant. Yeah.
But think about it, Lauren, as messed up as Kasich has been for you, and my condolences. I do appreciate what you've gone through. That's what shows you how messed up they are. That John Kasich is like the voice of reason in that.
Yeah, he's supposed to be a moderate Republican. Wrong.
Yeah, well, that's I think is the point, is that the Kasich and what I was going to say is, despite all the bad things that Kasich has done as governor of his state, the joining the witch hunt against Planned Parenthood and moving against collective bargaining and all these things, the thing that is probably going to wind up costing him any shot at the nomination is that he said nice things about gay people during the first debate. Nobody cares about the other stuff. That's good. That's meat and potatoes Republican stuff. Attack the unions, attack women. But when he says, I've been to gay weddings, I have gay friends, and I love them very much. Oh, no, you're not for us. You're not our guy.
Some of my best friends are Jewish.
Yeah, well, yeah. There was a little bit of that, but, I mean, it's like any time a white Republican says something positive about a member of a non-white race or even like a non-Christian religion, it always comes off like that. Like
You're
they're not all bad.
All right.
They're not all bad. I'm the first to say it. Some of my best friends are whatever.
I mean, they're still mostly bad, but they're not all bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can anybody say pandering, boys and girls?
Well, that's the only thing that they know. I think that's why Republicans attack affirmative action, and they refer to it as tokenism, because tokenism is the only kind of diversity they understand.
Well, I think you hit it on the head, Steve, because that's really if you think about Republican rhetoric and their policy, the rhetoric is always like, you don't need the government to manage your affairs because you're all people are basically, and then their policies are all based on the idea of like, you're a scumbag and can't be trusted.
Right.
So this is kind of pervasive in everything they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why we have to drug test people on welfare, even though it shows that they use drugs less often than the general public.
Yeah.
And it turns out expensive.
And the drug tests are more expensive than whatever money they hope to save anyway.
Right.
I mean, when you drug test hundreds of thousands of people and almost all of them come out clean, like you're just you're shoveling money down a hole.
Yeah. Well, it's right up there with trying to avoid voter fraud.
Yeah. But it works because they've done such a good job of making people afraid of those things. They think that is what voter fraud is, like a real issue that's going to turn an election, or all these poor people on welfare, they're just stealing our money.
Well, and the funny thing is, even though if you look at the very scant number of incidents of voter fraud, they're almost always on the right wing. Almost always. So that's why they think it's a problem, because they're the only ones actually doing it.
Yeah.
I actually read an interesting article. You guys ever heard of Cracked?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I could just live off of Cracked articles. Anyway, so I was reading one. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it was called like five things about rural America or whatever, like about Eastern Kentucky, and one of the things was that even though people who do this are still in a minority, voter fraud is sometimes welfare fraud is sometimes like a means of survival in those places. It was really eye-opening.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I understand because I actually just had this discussion with someone recently where no matter how right-wing you are, there are going to be people that you agree with. They should get welfare. They're hardworking. They're trying to get a job. They've had a job for 20 years. They have kids. They have a family. They're good American citizens. Blah blah blah. It's just that. They focus on exactly that. They focus on probably a tiny minority of voter frauders. Maybe I'd be surprised if it was over 20%, 10%, honestly. But because they focus on so much, it's a throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Voter fraud's not even in the percent. Voter fraud's not even in the percent. It's actually literally counted individually.
It's down in the hundreds and thousands of a percent.
Sorry, if I said voter fraud, I meant to say welfare fraud. But
I made the same mistake.
Yeah.
but I was going to say we could actually name all the people individually that committed voter fraud.
We could call them right now and invite them onto this hangout, and we could ask them why they did it.
Yeah, but the idea is that it's exactly that. They're going to punish people that they want to reward with this program by just blanket getting rid of it. Just like
they don't want to reward people with the program. That's the thing.
Well, and the thing that always gets me about, like specifically about people who complain about those who get welfare benefits, is they're not just when they cut welfare benefits, they're not just taking money from poor people who almost all of whom actually need it. That's why they put in for the benefits in the first place. But they're taking money away from all the businesses that those people would spend those benefits at. I mean, people don't get welfare benefits and just hoard it. They spend it on stuff. So all the stores that would be benefiting from the business from people who now have money to spend thanks to the welfare benefits are going to lose out too. I mean, they're
the same rationale that says don't raise the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because how could people having more money to spend possibly be a good thing?
Of course. You hit on an incredibly important point. Because the people that scream the most, like, oh, taxes and everything, they act as if the money disappears from the economy.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Yes, taxes can have a deleterious effect if they're too high, but the government takes that money and then it spends it and it goes back into the economy.
Yeah. And it seems to be having.
Yeah.
Is that working? Yeah, I guess it is. Okay. Hasn't somebody made the study that the places where they've raised the minimum wage to $15 an hour that the economies have been taken off?
Yeah, which because the argument against it, some people have said, well, if you raise it to $15 an hour, then why not raise it to 20 or 30 or 40? Why not just redistribute wealth and make everybody a millionaire? And it's like obviously there would be a point where it would be too high. But if we raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour, like overnight, if we just flipped the switch and said, okay, minimum wage is $15 an hour right now, in terms of buying power, it would still not be close. It might be close to the historic high. If you look at a graph of minimum wage through the years adjusted for inflation, the minimum wage now is lower in terms of buying power than it's been in 50 years. So people saying, well, let's raise the minimum wage to $10 an hour, $15 an hour, that's just bumping it up to where it should have been all along if we had maintained the same level of buying power by adjusting for inflation. Now, if you raised it to, twice as high as it's ever been just overnight, then yeah, that would probably cause some problems. That would be really disruptive.
Steve, posted in the chat. It's actually $22 an hour would be the equivalent of what it was in 1970.
Okay. Well, there you go.
That's scary because my first summer job back in 1969, $1 an hour.
Yeah. And you could buy 10 comic books for that.
Probably thereabouts. And it's interesting. That job was in Evanston, Illinois, at the original manufacturing plant for Tinker Toys.
Oh,
good old
nice.
Evanston.
And it was,
I remember
say,
playing with those when I was a kid. Those were
place
so
was
fun.
dusty as hell. Had all the saws cutting the still wood back in those days,
Yeah.
cutting the slits and cutting the lengths and making the spools and the whole 9 yards. It was an amazing place with some neat people, and just one of those things you're never going to forget.
Yeah, I remember Tinker Toys. I think Tinker Toys were one of those things that, like, if you opened a preschool, like that came in your starter kit. You got like a big box. It said you don't even know who sent the box, but someone just drops a big box on your doorstep. You're like, oh, there's Tinker Toys, Lincoln Logs, those big cardboard blocks painted like bricks. You'll be all right.
The metal ones you had to use the screws and bolts as the fasteners for?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, erector sets. I had one of those, yeah.
It's like a fruitcake of kindergartens.
Yeah, and I never even
came from, but they're always there.
I never even did anything creative with Tinker Toys. I just like put one of the long ends on into one of the things and just play a little like it was a Harry Potter wand. That's basically all I ever did with Tinker Toys, and I still had a blast with them.
Yeah, yeah. I used to have. I don't know if they still make them or not, but it was called Constructs, and no, it was Connects is something different. It was called Constructs, and it was like Legos, but it was like long gray plastic pieces and then little blue connectors that you could use to hook them together at different angles. And you could get them like they would come in sets where you could build like a spaceship or a castle or whatever. But I would always just use them to see how long I could get them to go. Wouldn't even actually do anything creative with it. Just snap them all together.
That was after my time. But do you remember the take apart car?
I don't remember that, no.
That's probably before your time.
Yeah. Does anybody remember the take apart car, or is Joe the only one?
Doesn't ring a bell.
I remember the Visible Man.
The Visible Man?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was always the first time I saw that photograph in the Sears catalog, it kind of freaked me out because it's like the Visible Man. Like he doesn't have any. His skin is clear. You can see all his organs and stuff. Like, oh my God.
I dropped the take apart car in the chat.
Oh, cool.
I believe Visible Man also had a Visible Woman with the optional fetus for the woman.
Oh God.
And then you get the Planned Parenthood playset, and you can indoctrinate if you're a conservative parent, you can indoctrinate your children early into thinking that they're just massive abortion complexes.
Right. Who remembers? Did anyone ever play with this thing called Rockenbach? It was my dad got it for me and my brother when I was like 10 years old, and basically the object of the game was you had this remote control car, or not a car, but like a construction, like a bulldozer, and you would get these red and blue colored balls into this conveyor belt. No one else?
No, it doesn't sound familiar.
Really? It was a blast. I mean, you should Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about. But it was pretty fun.
Yeah, go
ahead. If we're talking about like old school, things people used to play with.
What about Weebles? No one remembers Weebles?
I didn't know.
Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down.
See, that sounds familiar.
Absolutely, yes.
That sounds familiar, but I don't think I ever had one. I was mostly when I was at that age where you're like where you're playing with stuff. I was almost always an action figure guy. I had action figures of like everything, and then I would start little action figure wrestling leagues where my different action figures would wrestle each other.
And He-Man won every time.
Actually, what I did was because they had by the time the He-Man line kind of puttered out, they had like 15 different versions just of He-Man. So and I had like all of them. You had like classic He-Man and He-Man with a different kind of armor, and He-Man who did like a thunder punch thing, and He-Man whose arms spun around. Like there was all these different versions of He-Man. So I had all the different He-Mans as different people, and I just said they're like a family. They're like a wrestling family, like, and they're all identical. So it's like 5 or 6 identical twins.
Lauren's probably the only one here old enough, besides me, that remembers the 12-inch G.I. Joes.
Oh, yeah, I had 3 of them.
Vaguely. Never was much into that, to be honest.
Well, they brought them back a little while ago, I think.
Oh, did they?
Because when I was a kid, it was just the little ones, the little plastic figures. But about maybe 10 or 15 years ago, I think they brought back the old school big GI Joes.
Steve's a space nut. I had the Mercury capsule that the GI Joe went into.
Oh,
that was great.
That I would love to see. Mercury was always my favorite space program too.
It had a video or it had a cassette tape you played that talked about the countdown, the launch, and everything.
Oh man, I would have loved that.
Do you remember Major Matt Mason?
No.
This was right after the moon landing. They had a whole series of little guys that had a moon colony and these rovers and all this kind of stuff, and that was what the rich kids had after Apollo.
That's awesome. Oh boy. Is anybody else interested in seeing The Martian?
I read it.
Yeah, very much.
Fabulous.
I really want to see that movie. It looks fantastic.
I know.
The book?
The book is amazing, and the story behind the author is even better. He just wrote it as a blog, put it up as Kindle, and became this worldwide sensation. It's a great story.
That's awesome.
I just hope it's not too much of a carbon copy of Interstellar, because, like, you know, I feel like it's going to be like the next big space themed release. So I hope it doesn't feel too much like Interstellar.
It's a geekum type thing. Somebody said if you watch that from Apollo 13 where they dump that stuff on the counter and says we need to make that fit into this.
Yeah.
That's what this whole film is about. It's
about the science of shit out of this thing, right?
Oh, it's amazing what he does.
Yeah,
it's pretty fun.
It's the kind of movie, just judging from the trailer, because I'm really excited to see it too. Just judging from the trailer, I mean, it looks like the kind of space movie that, like, I've always wished they would make, where it's like, just make a movie about like something that could actually happen in space. You know, where it doesn't have to have like a supernatural element. There doesn't have to be like aliens running around. I mean, I love all that stuff. I'm a huge fan of like space opera and sci-fi and everything. But I mean, if you think about it, just people flying into space is crazy enough that you don't really need to embellish it with, you know,
added enough drama in that alone.
Yeah. The thing I like about it too is, judging from the spacecraft, it looks like they've really thought about, okay, we're going 140 million miles. This isn't a trip to the moon, boys and girls. This is this is the long haul. So what is involved in going to another planet? And I think, you know,
there's a YouTube video where the author is interviewed by one of the guys from, I forgot the name of the show, but he talked about how much research he did with NASA guys to show actually how this could happen, and he uses all that technology in the book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and I saw that video that they released last week of Neil deGrasse Tyson, like, narrating sort of like the fictional episode of Star Talk about the mission in the movie, and that was cool. Now that's such a great gimmick to have Neil deGrasse Tyson be like the guy in the movie who's giving us all the exposition about the mission, you know.
It's a great gimmick to have Neil do anything, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing, you know what I thought?
The boss.
You know what I thought when I saw it too? Because the movie takes place like 10 years in the future from now or something like that. I thought, wow, Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't age at all. Like, this is supposed to be like in the 2020s.
Maybe he uses just for men, you know.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing too, I would love to see any kind of sci-fi movie where Neil deGrasse Tyson goes, I have no objections.
Yes. Or any kind of movie, period. Because, I mean, actually, you know, I just watched 2 or 3 days ago, I watched Titanic again for the first time in like 10 or 15 years, because me and Jason with a D are reviewing it for our movie podcast this week. Right? We're recording it later tonight, and so I watched Titanic, and of course, you know, that was one of the movies that Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, hey, the stars are wrong. You know, the stars in the sky, the boat sinks, the stars are
completely made up.
And he kept on it. Like, he would write. He I think after he saw the movie the first time, and this is just, it's either how smart or how just obsessively nerdy Neil deGrasse Tyson is, that you can watch the movie and think, oh, those aren't the right stars. Like, who the fuck even notices that? And he wrote to James Cameron and said, hey, you know, the stars are wrong. And maybe you could fix it, like before it comes out on DVD, and Cameron just sort of ignored him. And then the movie came out, it was re-released in theaters, and Neil deGrasse Tyson was like, still haven't fixed the stars. And and finally, I think the last time it was released, I think it was when they re-released it a couple years ago in 3D in theaters, and then it was released like again on Blu-ray and DVD. And that time the stars were finally corrected.
Really? That's cool.
Yeah, but it's like. And then there was also Neil deGrasse Tyson came on the Daily Show once and said that their digital CGI globe in their logo is spinning the wrong direction.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
I remember Jon Stewart's reactions. He goes, "Motherfucker!"
Yeah. Well, we can't. I mean, it's all put together. We can't just change the direction. It's a lot of work, Neil. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. And that's just well, and you want to a great contrast. You look at the contrast between Neil deGrasse Tyson and anything in the Republican clown car that is running for president.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that's great about Neil deGrasse Tyson is like when he's given an opportunity to just completely tear somebody to shreds, like he usually he doesn't do it. He doesn't take. He's not an attack dog. I mean, he'll say things like, he'll defend science and he'll argue against like really obviously wrong things. But he doesn't do the same things that like a Republican pandering to that primary base would do, where he tries to say, it's us versus them, and they're going to ruin our country. Like I don't think Neil deGrasse Tyson has ever said these people are going to ruin our country.
Even though they're ruining our country.
Even though they are actually ruining our country.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, he seems very secure about himself. Like he doesn't feel the need to be on the attack. That's kind of the vibe I get from that. He's really secure.
Well, that's why I kind of liked it. As much as I know some people got upset with him when he wouldn't expressly say that he's an atheist, even though we all know.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like, no, I'm not part of your movement, and he's not. Yeah, you can get mad at me, I don't care. He's like, yeah, screw you guys. I like that.
I'll just go back to my day job running one of the most famous planetariums in the world.
Exactly.
He owns himself. That is the thing. He owns himself. He knows what he thinks, and he's perfectly willing to alter his opinion if some proper data comes up. But he wants to be about what he's about, and the rest of the stuff is all distractions.
Right.
I actually met him once.
Oh man, can I meet you?
And in a bit of a professional capacity, not a science professional capacity, but he gave a speech at the hotel I was working at, and I helped him with his microphone and everything. And he gives his lecture, and on the podium he puts his wallet and his keys because he doesn't want them in his pockets while he speaks. So at the end of his talk, he's on stage still, and he's shaking hands and talking to people. And I go up to retrieve the microphone, and his wallet and everything's on the podium, and there's people all over the place. So I kind of hide that away from everybody, and then he comes back up, and I was like, here's your wallet. I made sure no one got it. He's like, good, because you don't want to be known as the guy that got Neil deGrasse Tyson's wallet stolen. Like, you're right, I know.
That's so great. Well, now all the rest of us in the Hangout, now we have also met Neil deGrasse Tyson once removed.
By extension,
It's like our bacon number.
Hey, I've met Lawrence Krauss.
Look at that! So we've all met Neil deGrasse Tyson and Lawrence Krauss.
There you go.
That's awesome.
Oh, but actually, really nice and professional.
What was the context?
He wasn't one of those guys that's a total jerk. He's nice on TV, and then you find out he's a jerk. Nope, professional, nice guy.
Well, I want to hear Alyssa's context of how she met Lawrence Krauss.
Yeah, me too.
So Lawrence Krauss and Richard Dawkins came to talk at Trinity College Dublin, and I live here in Dublin. And so I went along to the talk, and it was fantastic. And they said they weren't signing books. I brought my kids have a copy of The Magic of Reality. And I said, just on the off chance, it was really small. There were like 300 people in the auditorium. It was a really nice talk. So they said there were no autographs. They wanted us out of the building, and at the end of the thing. And of course, so 2/3 of the people just left, but then the rest of us mobbed the stage. And so Richard Dawkins just went away. He was ready to go and whatever. That was fine. Lawrence Krauss is like signing books and stuff. And here am I with Richard Dawkins' book, can I ask Lawrence Krauss to sign the other guy's book? So anyway, I almost didn't summon up the courage, and then I was like, if I don't do it now, I'm going to be so sorry the rest of my life. Like, so I went up to him and I was like, can I? Is it really cheeky to ask you to sign the other guy's book? He's like, oh, I did a lot of consulting for that. It's kind of my book too, no problem. So he signed it for me, and then I did probably the most cheeky thing I've ever done. Was worse than this. Was I said to him, Richard Dawkins, he's gone off backstage. My kids are enormous fans, and would it be at all possible, like, could you take the book back and just get him to throw his signature in it for the kids? And he was like, yeah, all right, go on. So he took the book back, and Richard Dawkins signed it and brought it back out to me, and we just had a bit of a chat. He was really, really nice, really nice.
Oh, what a great story.
Wow.
That's great.
I met him in Columbus along with Lawrence Krauss when they were doing the Unbelievers down there last year. And I had a chance to just shake his hands and thank him for what he did. It's just a 2-second impression, that's all it was. Like, you can't imagine just a gentler, more, well, just centered and a gentle man. You can't imagine. That's the absolute impression he leaves.
That's how Stephanie Guttormson describes him. She and I have gotten to be pretty good friends, and she's the for those of you who don't know, she's the operations director at the Dawkins Foundation in Washington D.C. Right. So she's been around him a fair bit, and she says it's exactly the same. He's when he goes to these fundraiser dinners where it's like $1,000 a plate just to get in, he's bewildered that this many people are that willing to meet him. He's like, how expensive is it to get in here? Like, what's the big deal? It seems like he still is just like a humble, self-effacing guy, which is nice.
I would love to meet Richard Dawkins. I would love to meet that guy. Him and Sam Harris, if I could get both of their autographs, that would just be like, that would make my day.
One person that I met, speaking of people that you hope they're as cool in person as they are on TV. I met somebody who is kind of a jerk on TV. He's actually really cool in person.
Bill O'Reilly?
Gordon Ramsay.
Oh, Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, I would love to meet him too.
Lord. I am actually in an episode of Kitchen Nightmares.
Yeah, you see, I wanted to ask you about this because you mentioned this before, and then I forgot to follow up on it. What episode is it? Because I would love to.
Yeah, there's an episode. It's one of the revisited episodes. It's where he goes to Leone's in Montclair, New Jersey. Montclair's not far from me, and we went up there one Sunday. We went up there for dinner, just to do something different. I'd seen the place on the show, and I started talking to the owner and everything, and then she's like, "Hey, you want to meet him?" I'm like, "Yeah." So, she's like, "Look, he's coming back this Wednesday to do the revisited episode. Why don't you come as our invited guest?" Like, awesome. So I took the day off. I went up, and he comes in, and so the thing is, now you see me from behind in most of the episode. And the last 20 minutes are when he's in Leone's, and I'm visible over his left shoulder, but from behind. But there's one spot where I turn to the side, and you actually see the side of my face.
That's awesome.
What happened was, and the thing is, what I thought was so cool about him is that, everyone has this, impression, he yells at people, he gets mad, he curses, and all this. Well, when he was in person, he was actually kind of quiet and unassuming. I mean, he's tall, he has a presence. But the thing that stood out to most to me, though, is that when he came in, he explained, "Look, guys, we're kind of behind schedule. We were supposed to get this started 2 hours ago. I have another engagement after this, so I'm not going to be able to stick around for very long." But despite that, a lot of people wanted pictures, autographs. 3 times he was out the door and walking away, and someone said, "Hey, Gordon," turn around, came back in. He didn't grouse. He didn't give people shit. Came back in, and he did not leave until the last person who wanted a picture or got an autograph got it. He basically left an hour late later than he was planning to, because people wanted it, and he cared that much about the hospitality that he was really nice. I talked to him a little bit. I mentioned a couple of places that he had been, the people that say hi to this person and that for me. So he was really cool.
That's great. I'm a big Gordon Ramsay fan.
This is the same guy who will put you to a piece of bread and call you an idiot sandwich.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, I think somebody has their headphones out or something. I'm getting an echo. Is it still? Okay, I think it's gone now. No, it's still there. Woohoo! Okay.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
I think it's gone now. But anyway, yeah. I'm a huge Gordon Ramsay fan. It's like some of my guilty pleasure TV. Like I watch everything that he's in, and I love when he's nice and he's being helpful, and I love when he's the angriest son of a bitch on the planet. I mean, I'm just entertained by him no matter what he's doing. I actually watched. Yeah, go ahead.
No, did you ever see the episode, the Fennec Arms? It was on the UK version of the show. That's the guy who did the really big Yorkshire puddings.
No, I didn't see that one. I haven't seen very much of the British one.
Okay, yeah, it's a great episode. And what we taught, when we were in one of the times we were in England, we stopped there, and it was a slow night. So the owner like sat down with us for dinner, and talked to me. And he said that there was one part where he kind of like tears the owner a new one, and the owner gets his own crack, and he says, "Well, this is what you have to do to get to the top." He says, "I'm glad I'm at the bottom." So after they finished doing that sequence, Gordon went outside and he was talking with the producer, and he was outside like near the kitchen window and didn't know he could be heard in the kitchen, and he was basically telling the producer, "That was the toughest thing I ever had to do. Don't ever do that to me again. Don't make me do that again." Oh, so wow. It was obviously even on the British show where the producers are trying to get him to amp up the rhetoric and kind of amp up the hostility.
Wow.
Yeah, you have to wonder how much this goes on in reality TV. I mean, I was mostly a fan of The Biggest Loser because my wife is a big fan of it, and I just had to drop it because they were just amping up all this drama, and
yeah,
I got sick of it. Literally, I have sworn off reality TV. Period. End of discussion.
Well, so Lauren,
it's not real.
I actually considered going on that show because I got a lot of weight to lose. And I actually downloaded the contract and I was filling it out, and I got to the section, and fortunately I read everything very carefully, that says when you sign this, you are agreeing that you cannot sue them for any kind of misrepresentation, even intentional. So they're telling you, we're going to misrepresent you on purpose for dramatic effect, and you have no legal recourse against it. You can't sue us for libel or slander, even if we slander you or commit libel.
Yeah. Well, I think that's sort of, most of us now, that reality TV in its current form has been so ubiquitous for so many years. I think most of us sort of accept that if you're going to watch it, you should treat it like any other TV show. You shouldn't expect that what you're seeing is like reality, especially the ones that are that follow people around, like the Osbournes or Keeping Up with the Kardashians, or the one I used to watch, Hogan Knows Best, because it was Hulk Hogan and I'm a wrestling fan, and even that I gave up on that after like 2 or 3 episodes because it was just it was boring, and it was really contrived. Like you could tell that they were making stuff happen, and it wasn't even entertaining stuff. It was like, oh, Hulk's going to the gym and he runs into a porn actor.
Sure, he does.
That's hilarious. And that's all that happened. It was just like, oh, hey, I know you, man. I've seen some of your movies. Yeah, I bet you have, Hulk. And then the guy leaves. It's like, okay, okay.
Can you say plug, boys and girls? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just throw a little, on-air advertisement.
Yeah. So but you know what you're getting into, and most of the ones that I watch faithfully are the ones that are like Master Chef, which is basically a game show, just in a reality show format. That's basically all it is. And the other Hell's Kitchen, the other Gordon Ramsay show, it's basically a game show, and it's just.
Well, one thing you'd be happy to hear, Steve, because I have asked a few of the owners. You know how on the show when they do the makeover, it's like in one night.
Yeah.
That they actually do it in one night.
Wow.
That's actually not bullshit. That they actually pull a whole team in. They kick everybody out 6 o'clock at night, and they just spend the entire night doing all those changes.
That's awesome. Well, at least that's real.
Yeah. And I actually made friends with one of the guys. Remember Clemenza from Hell's Kitchen, from like 3 or 4 seasons ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm friends with him.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's guilty pleasure TV. You know what I mean? Like it's not highbrow at all. But you know, if a new episode, I subscribe to MasterChef in my Hulu queue, and whenever there's a new episode up, I'm always like, Ashley, there's a new MasterChef. You know.
Hey, speaking of guilty pleasure TV, did anyone see the premiere episode of Fear the Walking Dead?
No, I didn't. Did anybody else?
Well, I call it guilty pleasure TV because unlike The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, the writing is pretty it's pretty shitty. Like everything's really contrived. The characters are just they're just kind of plot devices to take the story from point A to point B, and but the action so far is pretty cool, and that's the most the most self-absorbed thing you could ever say. But I think I might just keep watching the series just to see, because it's about how the world goes to shit, while the main character from the other one is in a coma. So I kind of just want to see everything go to shit.
I mean, I haven't even watched The Walking Dead. I mean, I've just never gotten into it, which is weird because I was a big fan of the comic, but then I kind of stopped reading the comic. I kind of dropped off from the comic after the prison storyline wrapped up.
Yeah, I haven't read the comics.
Yeah, the comic. I mean, I haven't read them for years, so I don't know how they are now. But when I was reading them about, I don't know, 5 years ago or so, I mean, the comics were really good, and you know, the show has always gotten pretty good reviews, but I've just never gotten into it.
Oh yeah, it's a good show. I would recommend it. I wouldn't recommend Fear so far on the first episode, but I would definitely recommend the original one. I think it's great.
I'll tell you what show I really liked, and I was glad that they picked it up for another season. Was the new show last year with Will Forte called The Last Man on Earth.
It looks cool from the commercial.
It is so funny. I mean, the title ends up kind of becoming a joke because almost every episode adds a new character, so he winds up not being the last man on Earth. But I mean, it's basically like a zombie show without the zombies because it's like everybody's dead except for a few survivors, and you know, and it's a comedy, and it's really really funny. And
so it's not like if Night of the Comet was actually funny,
huh?
So it's like if Night of the Comet was actually funny.
Right.
Which I love that movie, even though it's terrible. But
exactly. Yeah, it's a really funny show, and like because first he's the last man on Earth, and then he meets these two women, and he's like the last man on Earth with two women. You know, he's like in a great situation, and then another man comes along, and first him and the other man hate each other, but then they become friends, and.
And then they have a foursome.
Yeah, and then there are a whole bunch more people. No, but
I've seen that movie.
It's a really funny show.
I have to run, but one thing I want to leave as a parting gift.
Okay.
We were told, you know, we were doing, you know, a nice fun, you know, right wing bashing earlier. The thing that of all the rhetoric that they say that's so fucked up and bullshit. You know, they're always talking about, you know, oh, we have people have to stay within their means and the takers and everything. And if you look, not all, but the vast majority of the states where there's more federal spending than the people contribute in federal dollars, vastly more Republican conservative states. And the more conservative they are and the more religious they are, the more that they take. Mississippi, most conservative state, most religious state, biggest welfare state.
I guess they're Christian, so they're already used to cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, something to chew on while in my absence.
Thank you for leaving us with that, Joe. Good to see you.
Take care, man.
Yeah.
Take care, Joe.
Yeah, good to see you, Joe. Yeah, I think I had seen that before. Where like I think of all of the really super conservative southern states, I think one of the only ones, or maybe the only one, that isn't like underwater in terms of how much it receives from welfare benefits versus how much it contributes in taxes, I think is Texas. Texas technically is not a welfare state, but you know all the other ones like Mississippi and Alabama, like they receive more in federal benefits than they pay in federal taxes. So
it doesn't surprise me.
It'd be interesting to see how close to the break-even point Texas is, though.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised at all to discover they're very, very close.
Well, I mean, the shitty part of that is the reason why it works out that way is because so many of the people that live in those states are poor. I mean, it's not that they don't deserve the benefits. They need the benefits because they're living in poverty. But the shitty part of it is that they're still overwhelmingly Republican states. It's these people that have been convinced to vote against their own interests.
Yeah.
You know, consistently, over and over and over again.
I mean, can we say at this point that the Republicans essentially want to establish a 21st century fiefdom?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you have when you have one party that seems really determined to make sure that as few people get to vote as possible, like that was as if I needed another red flag to tell me that, you know, it's not a good idea to vote Republican right now. I mean, when almost all of the people who support these voter ID laws that disproportionately disenfranchise poor people and people of color and, you know, people in urban neighborhoods that are in need of renovation and all these things, like it's almost all Republicans that support these things, and most of the people that live in those situations usually tend to vote Democrat. So like what does that tell you? If you're pushing for voter laws that will disproportionately make it more difficult for people who would probably vote against you to vote, you know?
Our governor just got served with divorce papers.
Aww.
So there goes his family values vote.
Oh, I thought maybe he was challenged to a dance-off. That'd be way more entertaining.
Yeah, that would be good.
Dancing with the Stars, maybe?
You just got served.
Street dancing. 2 governors.
A street battle. A street dance-off.
Yeah. Speaking of which, whatever happened to the indictments against Rick Perry?
I don't know. Are they still pending? I mean,
I
sometimes
haven't heard a thing about it. I suppose I could pull up Google and find out, but I was wondering if anybody else had heard anything about that.
I remember hearing about it a while ago when the news first broke, but I haven't heard anything about it lately.
I'll tell you what I'm curious about. Whatever happened to that guy who just adamantly vowed to light himself on fire if gay marriage was legalized? Yeah. Did he light himself on fire? Where is he?
No, I think he said he was kidding, or he said he didn't mean literally.
Of course, he would say that.
Yeah, well, you know,
it's a fire of the soul.
There was a couple that was going to get divorced if gay marriage was passed, and you have all these people who just want to catastrophize about gay marriage, and it's like that pie chart that says what will happen if gay marriage is passed, and it's 100% gays get married.
Exactly.
And
that's it.
There's no the world ends. There's no mass divorce. There's no mass. Well, there's drama certainly going on. There's plenty of drama, but beyond that,
that's a lot of it. Is there are some of our fellow Americans that feel like either because they just honestly don't know, or they just think that things that happen in other countries don't count. But we were. I think I said this when I was recording my episode of the Thinking Atheist podcast that I was on, where we were talking about one of the anti-gay pastors who was.
Plug, Steve.
Thank you. You can listen to it if you want on the Thinking Atheist YouTube channel. It was quite a show.
That was
actually a great video.
The loose screws. I was like quietly fanboying the whole time. I was like, oh, I'm talking to Seth Andrews. But when he played this anti-gay pastor video clip or audio clip, and I think one of the things I said in that show is, we were like, the United States was something like the 16th country to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide. So we have 15 other countries that legalized it before us, and in some cases years before us, and none of the stuff that the doomsayers warn about ever happened. So what are we so worried about? It's like we're not the first people to ever do this. It's been done other places, and it's fine.
Well, Steve, none of those countries had God's protection. Gotcha.
Well, my thought on the gay marriage argument is that, we're going to look at this 20 years from now and laugh at the fact that we didn't do it sooner. Yeah. It's sort of like, there was this sort of doom and gloom when interracial marriage happened, however many years ago Loving versus Virginia was. And now that's not even considered anymore. The people who were against that then don't care about that anymore. In 20 years, the people who are against gay marriage aren't going to care about it anymore.
No, it'll just be normal, and we'll know that it's normal. I think I've said this a bunch of times, but I will know that it's truly normal when the people who are dead set against it now start taking credit for it.
I remember
that's what always happens.
The other thing against though.
Yeah.
What will be the next thing you can use as leverage to get money out of the parishioners? Because that's what this is all about. Is scary stuff. Give us money to the church. Right. So what can they do next? They're running out of options.
That's the main reason why so many people I think are opposed to these human rights movements and these various equality movements is because if everybody eventually attains something close to equality, then what are you going to use to scare people?
Muslim panic.
Muslim panic.
That's the point I wanted to make is that there are people who want to hang on to their bigotry. Yeah. And they don't care whether they're bigoted at the blacks or at the gays or at the women or whatever. They need that somebody to be better than. And
I agree.
Maybe I'm oversimplifying, but it sure smells like it.
Absolutely, and I think that's why so many of the arguments are the same. You can almost do like bigotry algebra. You can just replace different variables. Like the arguments against women's equality. If you take woman out and put black people, it's the same argument. Or gay people, it's the same argument. Or trans people, it's the same argument. It's all. I think you're absolutely right, Lauren. It's it has to be all about us. We have to be the ones in charge. We have to be the ones driving the ship. And if anything threatens that, then it has to be opposed. It has to be smashed. They can't accept the fact that maybe the way things are now isn't a result of it's just the way things naturally should be, which I think is always the assumption. Black people are poor, but that's just the way it's supposed to be. Women have fewer privileges, that's just the way it's supposed to be. Christians are dominant in politics and culture, that's the way it's supposed to be. Why would you want to change that?
And I think there's a correlation too with I think Aaron Ra is the one who brings this up, and I think it's a wonderful point that there are people who need to believe and there are people who want to know. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what, the correlation between those two, between that and the people who both need to believe and need to be bigoted, I'll bet there's a real tight correlation on that one. I'll bet you a cup of coffee at least. Get you some of that 8 o'clock for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I would not be surprised. I mean, there's a lot of overlap between the various groups. I mean, how many of the people who were staunch defenders of the Confederate flag also turned out to be members of some other fringe group? I mean, I every once in a while I post a video that really pisses off men's rights activists, and it's
you do.
It's one of which is one of my favorite things to do, by the way. I love it. I don't understand why they think that. Yeah, but the angrier they get, the more entertaining it is to me. So but it's really startling, and this is completely informal. I haven't taken a professional survey of this or anything, but it's really startling when you just go through all these people leaving comments. How many of them also seem to be supporting white supremacist stuff, or or if not overtly white supremacist, then at least anti-black or anti-gay or anti-trans. It's not all of them. Some of them seem focused just on the men's rights stuff, but there's quite a bit of overlap with other groups that are basically afraid of people who are underprivileged getting raised up to equality.
Yeah, I mean, most of the people who were at the rallies in South Carolina, most of the people waving the flag were part of the Knights Templar of white KKK, whatever, something like that. And this whole time, I'm seeing these people say, "Oh, we're a proud people. We're proud of our heritage," and it's all these just very shady, seedy, obviously white racist, white supremacist characters, and it's just dude, everyone can see that you don't give a fuck about heritage. It's actually something else.
Yeah, and they don't give a fuck about anybody other than themselves.
Right.
Like I was thinking about this the other day, with the men's rights types. How many of them were protesting in Ferguson or in Baltimore? How many of them were protesting the fact that, you know, young black men are being disproportionately targeted by police?
None of them.
None of them. They didn't care.
I find a great irony in all this equality stuff when it comes to the people who fight against it, and it's generally conservatives who were fiscally conservative, but we don't want to waste tax dollars.
Right.
How much tax dollars would we have saved if you just let everyone have equal rights from the get-go, instead of going up court case after court case, blocking people from having their rights?
Yeah, you know, one of my favorite. He is my favorite founding father, and he's one of my favorite people. Period. Thomas Paine said that if you want small government, then you should be supporting policies that lift up people who need government support. Because if more people can stand on their own, then the government can shrink. You know, the reason why you might need a huge government is because the government needs to be a certain size so it can support people and provide a safety net and lift people up who can't make it on their own because of economic circumstances or because they've suffered from oppression or whatever. And if you get to the point where there are fewer people that need that, where everybody's doing better, then the government can shrink. But you can't just cut things down when people still need it. That's, you know, you can't just cut government size for its own sake because you just have some dogmatic principle that says, well, it can't be any bigger than this.
And cue the libertarians.
Yeah.
Can we carbon copy Grover Norquist on this conversation, please?
Yeah, Mr. Don't raise taxes ever for any reason on anybody.
Mr. I don't want to destroy government. I just want to drown it in the bathtub.
I know a guy in my family. He's I won't say his name, but he's an anarchist. He's not just libertarian. He's a straight up anarchist. Yeah. And I keep telling him, bro, what I think is going to happen in your worldview is that if we get rid of government, it's going to be really, really bad. Like there are a lot of crazy people out there who don't care about rules. That's why we have rules. And he keeps saying, "Oh, you need a government to tell you, you know, what's moral, not to kill people." I'm like, no. There are quite a few people who are. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But if there's no government, it creates a power vacuum. Some other institution you may not like even less, will take its place. Like, I don't know, churches.
Yeah,
you have a theocracy.
They force their power on others, essentially. No governments, but yeah, then you have, the guy with the biggest car with the biggest machine gun on it. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of the knock on these right-wing libertarians who are always shaking their fists about tyranny, but the only tyranny they seem to object to is government tyranny. The tyranny of the wealthy. That's okay. That's just the free market.
Yeah, until it lands on them.
Yeah, right. Or sometimes even if it does, they're still like, yeah, but what? It's that mentality of, well, but I might be rich someday, so I want to have policies that favor the rich, because what if I get up to that level? And my response to that is, well, then you'll be able to afford to pay your taxes, won't you? I mean, I don't get that mentality. Well, we have to create these economic policies that favor the wealthy and disadvantage the poor, when the wealthy are the ones that can afford to pay their taxes. I mean, Bob Costas said years ago, talking about baseball players and baseball owners, and how to reform the way economics works in Major League Baseball so that there's more equity among the smaller teams and everything. And he said, look, we're going to have a system where some of the richest players will have to make do only being as rich as emperors and not as rich as sultans. I mean...
Here's a poser for you, Steve.
Yeah.
How much of this is just a product of people being at home in their own skin versus people who are not at home in their own skin and are just either afraid, upset, paranoid, whatever have you, but they don't own themselves?
I think that might be a lot of it. Yeah, I think not feeling threatened, feeling insecure. Yeah, insecurity, exactly. Because if you really, most of the people who are in these groups that oppose, various movements for equality, they boast about how strong they are, but they don't talk like strong people. They don't talk like confident people. They talk like they're really afraid.
Donald Trump comes across as the most insecure man I have ever seen, and how there are so many people like who just think, wow, what a strong leader. It boggles my mind. And can I just say that over here in Ireland, like, nobody gets it. Nobody gets it.
No, I have.
What's wrong with you people?
I have a couple of friends that I know through the internet that I'm reasonably close with who live outside of the U.S. and they're either Americans who live elsewhere or they're people just from other countries, and they all want to know what the hell is going on over here. Like, what are you people doing?
I want to know what the hell's going on here. I live here.
So do I.
I mean, I can summarize the prevailing attitude about Donald Trump in just 3 words: dude, go away. That's been the attitude mostly here in the U.S. to him about him, and I
actually
just go.
The better line is, Trump, you're fired.
Yeah.
Please. Oh, hey, that's as good a note to wrap it up on as any I could come up with. We have spent another wonderful hour together talking about a whole bunch of shit. Thank you guys who are in the room with me for joining me, and of course for being my Patreon patrons. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the support of all of you guys watching who might be Patreon patrons of mine. It really makes this possible for me to do, and I can't thank you enough. If you're watching and you appreciate what I do, and being a part of the Patreon campaign to help support the channel is something you might be able to do or want to do, please, I invite you to do so. Go to patreon.com/Steve Shives, and you can sign up to make a small monthly donation to support me and support the channel. I really appreciate it. But thanks to all of you guys for watching. Thanks to all of you guys in the room with me for coming along once again. This is always like the highlight of my month because we always have great conversations. And I will be back to do this again with probably some of these same people next month. So thanks for watching, and bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Take it easy.